What's up, YouTube, everyone? Thank you for checking out my video. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you hanging out, spending a little bit of your time with me. Right now, it's early in the morning. It's almost 7 here where I'm at, and I'm looking out my door right now. I'm watching the rain drizzle down, and I'm getting ready to leave in a moment, right after I finish this video. And lately, for me, it's been a pretty weird month. It's 2019, it's July, and we had a couple of eclipses. And the reason why I'm talking about eclipses is that I had a couple of really odd situations happen to me. Uh, and they were really significant for me. And like the first eclipse was on the 3rd of July this month. It was a solar eclipse, and the eclipses happened on my 6th and 12th house axes, which that's a pretty tough place for it to be because it concerns health and safety and things like this. You know, the 6th house is about your routines, your health, and your work and things like this, and the 12th house is about isolation, self-undoing. It's about the spirit world. It's about being isolated. It's the real weird house on the zodiac. But that's where my eclipses happen along this axis. And one of them, again, there was a solar eclipse on the 2nd or 3rd of July, and there was a lunar eclipse on around the 16th or 17th of this month. And on both of those days, I had like some really odd things happen to me, and they were very unusual on both of those days. Like, I'm talking things that will never happen again. Like on the 3rd, I had like a really weird freak injury, and I was really hurt for like 2 weeks, really hurt, and I wondered how hurt I would stay, but I'm actually almost back to normal. I'm like kind of amazed at how well I recovered from that injury. So I feel much better now, and I feel so happy and blessed that everything has worked out as well as it has in respect to that. And for the eclipse on the 16th, I had a situation, kind of a public situation, where I got embarrassed, and I could have gotten in like lots of trouble for something that I just completely had no control over, something that I didn't do. It was just I was a complete victim, which I'm still trying to fix now so that it doesn't happen to anyone else and again in the future. And yeah, this has been a pretty weird month, and both of those things happened on eclipses. And I don't want to go into detail about them because it's, you know, it's pretty out there. I'll be putting a lot of my business out if I did, and I think I've said enough by telling you that. But enough about eclipses. I say all of that to say that in the future I want to make a video about that relationship with the sun and the moon and how they affect our lives. From what I've learned so far, it has something to do with destiny and being on your proper life path, and those aligning you onto your proper life path. And maybe I'm not on my proper life path, because those were pretty extreme situations that played out for me with those eclipses. So the universe gives you sometimes subtle and sometimes very obvious hints to help you and guide you. And I guess I needed guidance at that time, but we'll see, and we'll talk about it later if you want to. But this video, I'm going to talk about electromagnetic fields, and I wanted to talk about this like a year ago, like in depth, and go in detail about what electric fields and magnetic fields do to you, how they affect you, because a lot of people think this is really negligible stuff, and you interact with them, and you know your body can deal with it. But It cannot, especially if there's excessive amounts and just chronic exposure day after day after day. And some of us don't even know that we're chronically exposed day after day after day. And I'm going to talk about and show you how to check your daily exposure by talking about the place where you live, like where I'm at now, or in the place where you work. The two places where you spend the most of your time. You really want to check those places, because if you're in that energy field, that type of energy field all of the time, what it does, and it's the bottom line of this video, is that it takes the sun out of your body. Because life is photosynthetic. It's all about absorbing the sun. Like in the physical world, life is all about absorbing the sun. Everything's all about the photosynthetic chain. So my point by saying that is that magnetic fields pull the sun out of your body, and I'm going to explain how magnetic fields pull the sun out of your body. And I'm going to do it simply, well, as simply as I can. And what triggered me to make this video today was that a couple of months ago, when I moved to this new area where I am now, I had to find a new apartment. This apartment where I am now, because for my job, I move often. So I learned a long time ago where's my device? I learned a long time ago that I needed to buy a device that would help me measure electric and magnetic fields in the places where I live. I learned after being introduced to the teachings of Dr. Jack Cruz, and he really enlightened me on a lot of things related to how nature works, and that was one of them, and it was huge for me. And this was like 5 years ago. So ever since then, I've been checking where I live to make sure it's not too polluted in radiation, magnetic, electric radiation. There's other forms of radiation that have their own consequences, but I'm going to focus on these two because they're what we're exposed to kind of the most. I'm going to talk about electric radiation and magnetic radiation and how they affect us. Well, well, first of all, what is magnetic radiation or a magnetic field? Well, magnetism is really mysterious in science. Like, even a lot of scientists, they don't really know how magnetism works in the universe. But when we talk about electronics and our technology, we use electricity like our main source of energy, source of power that we use nowadays. And like, okay, I'll just go back. I'm digressing, but a magnetic field is basically when electricity flows, magnetism radiates outward from the electricity. According to physics, they say it radiates at a 90-degree angle. So when it flows in one direction, it radiates outward from the flowing electricity. And the more current that's going, or electricity that's moving through a wire, a cord, device, whatever it's moving through, the bigger the magnetic field. And why is this significant? This is significant because our body contains an energy field system that involves magnetism and electricity. We have many energy bodies. And I guess evidence of in saying that we have many energy bodies is that we interact with people. Or when we interact with another person, our feelings change, and our feelings are affected by that person's energy field. The sun has its own energy field. The radiation coming from it is its energy field, and it affects us. We all know this for sure. The moon and all the other planets, they all have their own energy fields, and everything has an energy field. But for this physical body, one of the main energy fields energy systems that we use to fuel us and power us is electricity. Like, because when we eat, we break down food to make electrons, which is basically electricity, negative electricity. And our body, it's electromagnetic, so it also has its own magnetic field. So, how, like, why am I talking about all of this? Why are artificial magnetic fields a problem to us? They're a problem to us because they interfere with our own magnetic field, our own electrical systems. And they even say that our DNA is like a magnetic strip. It directs the electricity, currents, polarity to give instructions to the body and tell it what to do. And with the magnetic fields, being exposed to them, they interfere with the instructions that our body gets to maintain itself and upkeep itself and keep and transform itself day to day. So you don't want to be exposed to anything that interferes with that, interferes with how you absorb the sun. Really, it's basically, it interferes with how you absorb the sun. It makes you lose sunshine. You lose the sunshine that you've stored in your body from the food that you eat and from the sun that you absorb through photosynthesis. Life is all about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the start of our physical existence. But a magnetic field affects the body, affects us. An artificial magnetic field affects us because when we're exposed to it, and I'll speak on it from the perspective of hormones. I'm pretty sure there's other perspectives, but I'll talk about one that I kind of know a little bit, that I've learned. With your hormone chain, your hormone chain starts with cholesterol. Like, all of your hormones are made from cholesterol, so cholesterol is at the very top of the chain. And then the very next hormone is made from cholesterol is called pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is like the precursor to like all the rest of the hormones. And the very next hormone after pregnenolone is called cortisol. And I think we all are pretty familiar with cortisol. Cortisol is stress hormone. And if, of course, when we have to deal with stress, whether it be mental or physical, then our body makes more cortisol, and our body has a natural cortisol cycle. It's high in the morning, which wakes us up, and it's low in the evening, which helps us go to sleep, and it has to maintain that pattern. And you want anything spiking it too much, whether it be psychological or whether it be physical. You want anything interfering with that too much. So, okay, so like after cortisol, there's your, like, all the rest of your steroid hormones and other hormones. They follow a hierarchy. There's a chain. Your testosterone and all of the other hormones. They follow this chain. And at the bottom of this chain is vitamin D. Vitamin D is a hormone. And what is vitamin D? Vitamin D is, it's like a measurement or a meter that tells you how well you're storing the sun. It's like a battery, or a battery meter that tells you how well you're absorbing the sun. So vitamin D is at the very end of the chain, and at the very top it's cholesterol and cortisol. And vitamin D is at the very end. So anything you do up here is going to affect this, and this is going to affect this, and this is going to affect this, and eventually it's going to affect vitamin D. So everything affects vitamin D. Everything affects how you absorb the sun. Any type of stressor that you deal with. If it starts here at cortisol and your body's able to, it's not too big of a stressor, then you can fix it. You can make adaptations, and you can deal with it better in the future. But if you're exposed day after day after day and it's chronic, then eventually you lose the ability. You can't adapt. You can't make those adaptations, and it depletes all of the hormones in between on that chain, and everything's going to affect vitamin D because vitamin D is at the very end, and vitamin D is your sunshine storage system. And also, what is vitamin D? Vitamin D is your immune system, and basically chronic stress, any chronic stress, whether it be mental or physical, is going to deplete you over time, and it's going to deplete your battery and steal the sunshine out of your body. And vitamin D is your immune system. And of course, if you're stressed for any reason over a prolonged period of time, you're gonna get sick. And that's a big part of the reason why is because you're losing your sunshine. The sunshine is being depleted from your body. And why am I saying all this? Why am I talking about all this? Well, when you are in the presence of a magnetic field in your home, and of course the magnitude of it affects how much it affects you. When you're in the presence in your home, which you spend a lot of your time in your home, at least 1/3 of your day if you go home just to go to sleep, and even where you work, then you're exposed to magnetic fields, which is a type of stressor that I just mentioned to you. So you're constantly depleting cortisol, and you're consistently stealing the sunshine out of your body, because anything that affects all of the hormone chain, and eventually vitamin D is at the very end of the hormone chain. So all of those stressors affect vitamin D, and of course the bigger the worse. And if you don't have the adaptation, even the worse it is for you. So it won't affect everyone the same, because everyone won't be exposed to the same stressor or the same amount of stressor. But for some people, they may have huge exposures and don't have no idea, and they feel like crap and they don't know why. And I'm kind of telling you why. I'm giving you like one thing to look at, and just for ultimate health. And you just don't want anything depleting your sunshine. If you don't have to be in that situation, don't be in it. And that's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about how to measure these things so that you can just move to a different place. Whether you move from your house, your apartment, or if you just move to a different part of your house or apartment, because certain places are safer than others. But for me, as I'll show you in a moment, my entire apartment has a little bit of magnetic field permeating throughout it. So there's not really much that I can do, but I got like the least of the evils of apartments when I was looking for my apartment. So this one it's the safest, even though it's not completely the way I would like for it to be, which I'll show you in a moment. But yes, I say all of that to say that magnetic fields, being exposed, chronic exposure to magnetic fields, and of course the bigger the worse, they spike cortisol, and which is your stress hormone, and over time depletes your immune system. So you find yourself getting sicker easier from nothing, from things that you would usually recover from, because of the systematic depletion of your immune system by being exposed day after day after day after day after day. For some people it may take a couple of months for it to show up. For other people it may take years. It all depends on your current level of health and your genetics and things like this. All these things come into play. But now I'll talk about this device and how to measure magnetic fields. And I've told you what magnetic fields do to you from my point of view, my standpoint, and I'm going to show you how to measure them, and I'm going to show you how much magnetic fields I'm exposed to here, to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. But I'm going to talk about this in a part 2 of this video, because I like to keep my video blocks in like increments of 20 minutes. So check out my other video. Check out the part 2.